Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Human Rights, the show in which we discuss all things related to human rights. I'm your host, Jules Allender, and I am part of the California chapter of Youth for Human Rights International. Youth for Human Rights International's purpose is to help educate everyone on what human rights are, specifically the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and more importantly, inspire the youth of today as our leaders of tomorrow to stand up for these rights. For each show, we like to take up one right and try to broaden your understanding of how this right is important to you and your loved ones. And for today's show, we'll be looking at human right number 26, the right to education. Let's go ahead and take a look at a short video on this human right.
Now, Krista, make sure you stay with her the whole time. She's new to the country. This is her first day. This is a brand new country. It's a whole different culture.
Gonna be okay.
Now, make sure you stay with her the whole time. I'll be here right after school to pick you up.
Okay, Mom.
Okay, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ignore my mom. She's so annoying. She's totally freaking out about this whole thing. She freaks out about everything. She always does that. Ugh. Ignore my mom. So, ready for your first day in the wicked castle of doom? I mean, like, seriously, it's so boring. I don't know how they could put us through this, like, every single day. How many schools do you have in your village? None.
Let's examine these ideas a little more closely. Education has been with us for as long as we have been a species. There's never been a time when human beings were not educating other human beings. It could be as simple as what to eat or how to wash your hands, or as complex as learning astrophysics or how to perform a heart transplant. It is easily observable that where good education exists, the individual has opportunity and the society moves forward with their stated goals. And where education is hard to come by, a society stagnates and a feeling of hopelessness pervades the future generation. Education is not a single thing, nor does it come from a single source. There is the education your parents and grandparents passed down, which is mostly cultural. Culture has to do with your religious beliefs, morals, race. It is a broad subject where we all learn our family history, achievements and failures, and the lessons learned from those experiences. Learning about your own culture helps you to understand other people you will meet I'm going to give that to you again. Learning about your own culture helps you to understand other people you will meet in the future. There is formal education or schooling, learning the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Specialized education in trades or college degrees. On-the-job education, taking what you've learned elsewhere and actually learning how to apply it to a specific job. I'm sure there are many more categories that could be listed, but those would suffice. In today's world, the cornerstone of education is literacy. The ability to read and comprehend what you are reading. Another important aspect of education is the ability to then go look for yourself to see if what you read is true. The ability brings about certainty, and certainty, not data, is knowledge. One thing education is not is indoctrination. Indoctrination could be defined as telling someone the way things are without inviting them to look for themselves. Part of a good education is learning how to look, learning how to affirm that what you were taught was true. With literacy intact, the individual is not confined to the classroom or beholden to an institution. With literacy, there is a freedom to continue one's education into anything that individual considers important. With literacy, you can expand upon what you have learned. There's another very important aspect to education, and that is how education promotes equality. It may not be apparent at first, but people that are better educated on how a society works, how the things they own work or are made, why rules are the way they are, how their government works, and how to change it have an easier time in our society. If they understand how finances and money works, the math behind loans and interest, a basic understanding of math, they are less likely to be taken advantage of. Those that are not educated, do not understand the agreements or how things work, are much more likely to be made into victims of all the complexities of society. They will take a job not realizing it won't cover their actual expenses, or take a loan that they cannot afford. They can more easily be taken advantage of by an unscrupulous person. These are symptoms of inequality. Behind these symptoms is a bad or missing education. While education alone cannot solve all societal inequalities, it is a powerful tool for promoting equal opportunities, social mobility, and a more inclusive society. By investing in quality education and ensuring equal access for all, societies can work towards reducing disparities and fostering a more equitable future. It is no different today than it was in the past. If you go back to 200 years ago, people had to learn how to tell good water from bad water, how to stay clean without running hot and cold water, how to navigate, how to ride a horse. The difference is most of those things they could learn at home from their parents or grandparents. As society has advanced, it has become more dependent upon educational institutions. Unfortunately, educational institutions are not very personalized, and people begin to split between the cracks. In the United Nations Charter, there is a very specific qualification made about education. That is that, and I quote, "Parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children," end quote. Too often, the states try to take control of education despite the parents' wishes. This is more destructive than just limiting the breadth of the child's education. It breaks down an important component of getting a full education, and that is the support of the parent, let alone breaking down an important building block of society, the family. The ability to be educated, the awareness that there is more to know, and the certainty that you can learn and use it is an important part of any education. With these skills intact, a person can, if they wish, pursue about anything in life that they can imagine. My guest today is a storyteller, medicine maker, and an educator in her Native American community. I'd like to welcome Amy Admire.
Notung Amy Admire Yaka, non Washnai, non Pionkowish, Noquam Joseph Morales, Stella Kolb, and Marcela Ramos Mason, non Helica, Katuma, P non Alvika. My name is Amy Admire. I'm from the Rincon Indian Reservation. I am Pionkowichum. And as Ms. Jewell said, I am a storyteller and an educator and an advocate for Native youth.
Welcome, and it's really an honor to have you on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as you mentioned and I mentioned, you are a teacher. Can you tell me a little bit about, what you teach and where?
So I'm a trained preschool teacher, and I taught preschool for a while. But what our programs are known for in the education, as you said in your introduction, we teach culture and language and the record and history keeping of our people. And we share that education, that transference of knowledge from our generation to the next generation. So we run Native and Indigenous clubs and classes on our local campuses. We have language and storytelling classes. We have many other programs focused on preserving our history and cultural practices.
Excellent. And such an important, as I mentioned and you mentioned as well, it's such an important piece to every individual's, education is their history, their family history, cultures, what it's made up of, so that those mores and those things can continue and pervade through society. So I think it's exceptional that that's what you do and are very lucky to be able to go ahead and do that.
We are. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I love the idea of storytelling. Tell me how that fits into what you are doing.
Well, the more we know about who we are, the more confident we are, especially in places where we don't see ourselves. In our public school system in particular, our local school system historically had one Native American teacher. So having that confidence and knowing who you are, where you come from, helps you feel more secure and more safe in places where you're likely the smallest population, right? And also through our storytelling, we're building their language skills. So again, that preservation component, and learning all types of things along the way, because stories to us are our history. Yeah.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that last point a little bit more? Just how stories are a part of your history and how you're able to continue with that?
So when I say stories, it's our creation story from time immemorial to today, but it's broken into what we call stories. So they're, certain parts of the story are concentrated on at a given time. So there might be a lesson or something we want to learn from our creation story that we're spending time on. And so that becomes its own story, but it's really from a larger creation story that takes days and days and days to tell and is very formal and has recitatives and songs that go with it. So yeah, it's a really involved process, but that's what I mean by story is usually we're just focusing on one area of our creation story at a time.
Got it. That makes sense to me. And then, and I have a question, and hopefully I don't come across as ignorant or anything in that way, but I'm just going to ask it. Is everyone a storyteller, or is this something that is given to or kind of taken on?
So I think we're all historians of like our own family story. Mm-hmm. But yes, storytelling is kind of its own program, if you will. I was asked more than 20 years ago now to create a program that young people could identify with. And I looked around in our community, and we have bird singers, and we have different parts of our community doing different work. But what we didn't have, I felt, was a storytelling program where we actually focused on our creation story in particular. But there are people who do bird singing and other types of singing, which are also stories from our creation. But I thought this would be another unique way to implant that history onto the children's hearts and minds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, storytelling in it's just its own right is very powerful and very memorable. And so then to be able to have that as part of your culture and the teaching of creation, yeah, I could imagine that it has a large impact on children and youth and even adults.
Yeah, so what we did as a group was decide to start acting out the stories. So the young people became performers. and began building their leadership skills and their public speaking skills over the years. We perform mostly at our local school system, helping to educate other students, the non-native students and community, about our people and the history of where we all live.
Yeah, that's great. You know, shared culture, and I've always taken an interest into others' cultures and religions, and really just with an open heart, like an actual strong interest. And it's fascinating what you'll learn and see the similarities and see the differences. And it's just, I think, well, I know for myself that it's an ability to respect the individual then, right? We're not all the same. We don't all need to be the same. You know, we have our differences in our own right, and they're not bad that we have differences. So I think that's great that you open it up and you educate and give others that are not part of your culture that opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and I think that's very much what we do. As you're saying, finding the similarities. Our classes are open to all populations, and so it gives us that opportunity to get to know more about each other, not just our Native community, but also the people who are in our community too, that we might not always have a chance to interact with either, being that we're on a reservation.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And so it sounds like you're trying to impart Native American culture. Am I right?
Well, we're trying to empower our young people who have been denied access to their culture. And historically, we have been denied access. You know, a lot of our ways of being went underground for a really long time. We haven't been able to practice our religion or our ways of being until 1978. And I was already a young person at that time. But what we want is for our young people to never know what that feels like, or to not know what that feels like again, or to have a generation who doesn't have access to who they are as and a whole, right? As an entire human being, that they deserve to know all the parts of themselves, and to use that to be comfortable in the world. Our young people often tell us that they don't feel worthy. They're very angry and they're not sure why. So our job is to come in and kind of explain to them the things that haven't been explained to them about the true history of our area and of California in general, so that they can know where these feelings are coming from, right? They know something's wrong. They know they're treated a different way, but they're just not sure why. And so we try to help them understand those feelings, and then use our history, our language, and our cultures to empower them, that they can and are deserving of rights, and that they can exercise those rights. Because a lot of us feel, when we grow up, we feel like human rights are something other people have, because we've been told for so many centuries that we didn't qualify.
Yeah. I mean, having that understanding definitely can help an individual take control of those emotions and those feelings, and then find solutions to them. And yeah, I mean, that deep understanding of what has happened is definitely an important part of someone's life, and all of our lives, simply and matter of fact. How does go
all
ahead.
of us to know the truth? It makes a better place for everyone if we're all in a truthful place.
Absolutely. Truth will, I know the old adage is truth will set you free, but truth, it gives you a starting place, rather than running in circles and people denying facts and things of that nature. It's truth will allow a starting place to change or reform and everyone come together. So I absolutely agree.
Uh-huh.
And then how does American culture repress Native American culture?
I think it's just the lack of understanding. I mean, there's definitely still racism. You're probably aware that racism has been declared as, a health crisis in this country, I want to say, but I definitely know it across California, and that's only been in the last few years. So to deny that racism is there wouldn't be being truthful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also just that lack and miseducation of not only our Native students who participate in public school systems, but also the people who have been trained to teach our children also were raised in that same um, misinformation sphere, right? And so there's just a lot of not knowing each other very well or the history of each other and how we all got here, so that we can better live together. And so that's a lot of the focus of our work, is really helping everyone understand better why these systems are still persisting in America and how people can support our healing. Because we say, and at our team, we say that we're in recovery from 3 genocides. And that takes a lot of effort to relearn and unlearn ways that have hurt our communities, and relearn ways to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so from your viewpoint, is there a way for both of these cultures to live side by side?
Yes, I think that again, acknowledging as the um, Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the UN's Declaration of the Indigenous Peoples' Rights are really good starting places to affirm that we are all human and we are all here now. I do, acknowledge, and I want our children to acknowledge that we happen to be um, grateful, I guess, that we ended up on primarily what is considered our homelands, but we recognize that there's other people here now. But it does improve our ability to heal, to have the non-Native people also acknowledge that, and then ask themselves what they can do to support our communities while we're living together, right? Because I often feel like where the needs of our shared communities are neglected.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost finding out like what's needed and wanted from each other in order for us to live side by side, and it's the word I'm looking for, enhance one another's lives and cultures and things of that nature. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And so, getting back to the schools and education, how could education in Native American schools be more equitable?
Well, that's something I think too. We do have, like on our reservation, a charter school for Native students, and it's open to the community as well. But 95% of Native students across the country go to public schools. And so it's the public school's responsibility to be aware of education codes that impact Native students and that are meant to support them. And I think there's a lack of knowledge in our public schools around those types of supports, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's their responsibility and our job as Native advocates and just community members and parents and aunties in general to hold our schools accountable, to make sure that our students have all the access that the federal government has already outlined for them. You know, they've made these recommendations and there's legislation since the 30s, since the 1960s. You know, report after report comes out, and I feel like people don't pay attention to them, and don't, for whatever reason, feel that it's their responsibility to do so. But truly, if you're running a public school, it is the administration's job to be aware of legislation and all things that impact all their students, not just the larger student population.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely their jobs to be aware and to ensure that, you know, there's equality in all facets of each school and every school. And so kind of staying on this topic, in some of our literature it showed that Native Americans' attendance levels in school to be twice as high as the stat average. And I'm wondering if you can share why is that?
So you can, whatever the state average is for the general population, you can usually double that and get probably a accurate look at how the data rolls out for Native students. Like our suspension rates are twice as high. Our chronic absenteeism is twice as high in general. And then that will vary by school. So each school might have a different data points based on what's happening in that particular school. So most of the data we have to understand when we read data about our children's education is that that's an average across boards or across districts, right? Or geography. But yes, so the reason we have high chronic absenteeism is varied, just like why we have high suspension rates, just like why is there substance abuse on, you know, prevalent in our communities. There are many different reasons, but I will say there's a foundation for chronic absenteeism, a foundation for why parents don't engage with schools, and some of it has to do with the boarding school system that some of our families live through. There's still a stigma associated with school. There's we call it disenfranchisement, right? So over time, parents have felt uncomfortable engaging in school, and that children also feel uncomfortable in their schools where they're supposed to feel safe. But like I said, a lot of our students share that they don't feel safe there. They feel targeted, and that concerns they have are swept under the rug. And so this can create, just again, that feeling of not being safe there. And then that harkens back to all the other social, you know, things. We also live in a rural space. Transportation is sometimes a problem. So it can be many things. But what we try to acknowledge is that the understanding of where that disenfranchised comes from, and we try to help teachers and administrators kind of understand. They have to understand that background and the history, so that we can work from there, and helping people feel comfortable, families feel comfortable in their schools, and comfortable to go to them to say I'm having a problem, right? Or that I have a concern about why I can't get my child to school. They have to feel comfortable to talk to these administrators and teachers. So
yeah, absolutely. Again, I think an understanding, and that comes through education, of what each individual situation is. I think school across the board treats every kid the same, and not understanding an individual situation or an individual personality and kids, and obviously statistically Native Americans can just get swept under the rug, right? It's just not worth the time, it's not worth the effort. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings and not knowingness, is what you spoke on, that can just lead and then not caring enough for the individual that it doesn't really matter. I'm still going to get my paycheck, frankly.
Yeah, and I pray that's not, and I'm frequently reminded that there are many teachers and administrators who are caring about our population, and all students in general. I think again, it just goes back to that miseducation. They don't quite know how to support, like the government has outlined in Title VI, which is Indian education legislation, that our people have unique and specific needs. But a lot of time people don't understand what that means. And because of old systems, they're unwilling sometimes to listen to the people who know what our communities need.
Right.
Because they've been put in places of authority where they feel entitled to make decisions for our community, not with our community.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. And I would agree with you that there are definitely a number of teachers and educators who do care. So my statement was a little too broad. And thank you for pointing that out, because you are correct. And on that sense of success, tell me some of the successes that you have had with students you are teaching.
We're just so blessed to be in the spaces where they are. We were called into our middle school in 2017. We'd been in the district historically on annually, different types of events, tutoring, but we were called in 2017 to help reduce some violent episodes that were occurring at our school site with the Native population, between themselves and others. And so we've been able to create spaces for Native and Indigenous clubs, again, that are open to everyone. And those have been really successful. We were able to create those clubs, not just at the middle school, but from the lower elementary to the middle school, and really creating a pathway for students to, through each grade level, have access to mentors and people who look like them, right? And so we've been really excited to do that work. We also hear from our students. They continue to participate in our programming. We have multiple programs, and we're excited that we see them across our programs. And in our storytelling program in particular, we have students who have now, a whole generation of them have went from 3rd grade through college with us.
Wow.
And are doing well. They are now teaching.
Wow.
They are now sharing their stories with other young people. So we've been able to create more people to do the work.
That's incredible. That's quite success,
Yeah.
So very well done. Good for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And, we're just, again, grateful that, and the young people are ready, we're finding. So, they're ready to begin to advocate for themselves. They just need people who are willing to support them along the way.
Absolutely. Incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other points about your organization or what you guys are doing that you would like to share with our audience?
I think what I'd like people to know also is that we have a lot of our work focuses on the 18 to 30-year-olds. There's a lot of times when in our community, most of our orgs are grant funded, and grant funding generally ages out around the age of 18. And so often we'll have young people who still really need the support of mentors, to help them navigate what it means to be an adult. And in our communities, it can be really hard to navigate that. I heard you talk about earlier how education helps us like understand finances and maybe purchase homes and these different things. And a lot of times because where we live looks different, and our access to education looks different, it's really important to be able to have those mentors who can continue to guide them. So yeah, we've got things like Gathering of Native Americans, which we just held at Los Coyotes Reservation a few weeks ago. And that's all about the supporting and healing of our young adults and providing resources. So we've been very honored to be able to provide those for the third year and pray that those events continue. Our young people share that they really appreciate having those spaces that are safe, and where they can just explore being Native and Indigenous with each other.
That's excellent. And if someone wanted to participate in your organization or potentially donate or just get a hold of you, how would they reach out?
We have a website. It's at tahum.com, and you can also find us under the same name at Instagram and Facebook.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we ask every one of our guests this final question, and that is, obviously we have the Declaration of Human Rights, and it has all the 30 different human rights. And what is your most favorite, the one that resonates, the one that resonates the most with you, and why?
That's a good question. I think there's areas for improvement across the rights when it comes to our Native and Indigenous communities. But I think what we're trying to share with our young people and families is the first right, that we are all born free and equal.
Yeah.
We use that kind of in some of our messaging. We are a TAHUM PHUM KWAN, we are for the people, because we are deserving, we are equal, and we're worthy. And a lot of times the policies and traumas of the past have led to us forgetting that. And so before we can do all the other work, we have to first understand that we are worthy. And we are worthy because we are human beings and because we are born equal. Absolutely.
Beautifully put.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. It definitely was an honor. I appreciate all of the work that you are doing for your community and at large. I think work like this touches farther than your community and really bringing individuals and cultures together. It's just a priceless thing that needs to get done. So I thank you for it. Human rights will be in a better place because of it.
We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the space.
Absolutely. Well, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Some incredible viewpoints, some incredible truths, and things that we can look at within ourselves, within our culture, and within other races, and learn to understand, to be educated, and to respect those. As our guests put, we are all human, and each individual on this planet is a human, therefore they have all 30 of the human rights. As I interview these wonderful guests, as always, it is quite an inspiration. And then I wonder what you're going to do with the information, how you're going to share it with your loved ones, and frankly, how you're going to get involved with fighting for every other person's human rights, not just your own. As always, we have wonderful videos on each human right in 17 languages. You can check that out at our Youth for Human Rights International website. It is yhri.org. Please also ensure that you check out our social media platforms. We are Youth for Human Rights California on Facebook, and our Instagram and Twitter handles are YHRCAL. Thank you, and until next time, I will see you then.